The park had always been Peppa's family's favorite place, green and safe. But no one suspected what dark secrets the new cleaner was hiding behind his friendly appearance. Sunny morning in the town, Peppa's family decides to go to the park for fun. Peppa runs excitedly to the swings. George drags his beloved Mr. Dinosaur behind him. Mummy and Daddy Pig sit comfortably on the bench. Everything looks perfectly normal and peaceful. Suddenly, a large green figure with a broom appears. The new park cleaner arrives mysteriously. Shrek slowly sweeps the paths with care. His red eyes watch everyone carefully and suspiciously. Children play happily, not noticing the strange stare. Parents read their newspapers quietly. Shrek approaches closer to the playground area. Leaves turn black under his heavy feet. Peppa swings higher and higher joyfully. George builds elaborate sand castles with concentration. The cleaner begins sweeping around the sandbox. Sand becomes dark and sticky mysteriously. George tries to take sand, but hands stick firmly. He cannot break free at all. Peppa calls loudly for parents to help. Mummy and Daddy run over quickly. Shrek continues sweeping very calmly. His sinister smile grows wider and wider. Parents try desperately to help George. The sand holds him tighter than before. Other children in park stick to toys. Nobody can leave this place anymore. Shrek sweeps much faster now. The entire park covers with dark, magical dust. Families try frantically to leave. The gates are locked by invisible supernatural force. The cleaner laughs with frightening sound. His broom glows with eerie green light. Peppa finally understands the real danger. She tries desperately to warn everyone around. Shrek approaches each family slowly. All children become strangely quiet and obedient. Parents don't notice the changes. They think children are simply tired from playing. Sun sets slowly. Nobody leaves. They all stay in park forever and ever. Shrek disappears into dark shadows. The park looks perfectly clean and innocent again. New unsuspecting families arrive tomorrow. They don't know about the terrible danger waiting. Shrek appears again with his broom ready. The horrifying cycle of terror continues endlessly forever. Peppa Pig's bedroom always seemed like the safest place. But tonight, something was terribly wrong beneath her bed. Strange, scratching sounds echoed from under the frame. Peppa lay still, listening to mysterious noises below. The sounds grew louder each passing night. Something was definitely moving in the darkness. Peppa tried to ignore the disturbing sounds, but curiosity was stronger than her fear. Mummy Pig tucked Peppa into bed as usual. She didn't hear the eerie sounds underneath. The scratching became rhythmic, almost like a song. A twisted melody that made Peppa crawl. George slept peacefully in his room nearby. He remained unaware of the growing terror. Daddy Pig snored loudly downstairs in living room. His snoring masked the sinister sounds above. Peppa gathered courage to peek under the bed. Her heart pounded as she leaned over. Two glowing red eyes stared back at her. They belonged to something that shouldn't exist. A yellow square figure emerged from shadows. It had sharp teeth and terrifying grin. The creature introduced itself as SpongeBob with voice. But this wasn't the friendly character known. His laugh was mechanical and without warmth. It echoed through the room like machinery. SpongeBob's eyes never blinked once during encounter. They remained fixed on Peppa with intent. He beckoned Peppa to come closer to him. His smile grew wider, revealing sharp teeth. Peppa felt an irresistible urge to crawl underneath. Something was compelling her to move forward. The space under bed seemed impossibly deep. It stretched far beyond what seemed possible. SpongeBob's laughter grew louder as Peppa approached. The sound filled her head completely. Peppa crawled deeper into the dark space. The familiar bedroom disappeared behind her. The walls around her became wet and slimy. They pulsed like they were somehow alive. SpongeBob's voice whispered promises of endless fun, but his words felt cold and empty. Peppa realized she couldn't turn back anymore. The entrance had vanished without trace. Morning came and Mummy called for breakfast. But Peppa's bed remained completely empty. The family searched everywhere throughout the house, but Peppa was nowhere to found. Under the bed, only SpongeBob's laughter remained, waiting patiently for the next child. Peppa Pig's house always seemed like the safest place in the world, but beneath its foundation lay dark secrets that should never be uncovered. Strange sounds echoed from the basement every single night. The family heard dull thuds and mysterious scratching noises. Daddy Pig decided to investigate the source of sounds. He went down to the basement with his flashlight. Behind old dusty boxes, a hidden door was discovered. It was secured with a heavy rusty lock. Mummy Pig joined the search down below them. Together, they broke the old rusty lock completely. Behind the door opened a long, dark tunnel. The air was stale and freezing cold inside. The family slowly moved through the narrow passage. The walls were covered with strange green slime. At the tunnel's end was a small room. In the corner sat a yellow square figure. It was SpongeBob, chained to the cold wall. He looked sad and completely helpless there. SpongeBob begged to be freed from heavy chains. His voice sounded pitiful and very sincere. Peppa felt sorry for the imprisoned creature below. She asked her parents to help him escape. Daddy Pig broke the chains with his hammer. SpongeBob was finally set completely free from captivity. SpongeBob thanked the family with grateful tears. He seemed so kind and sweet and innocent. The family invited SpongeBob to live upstairs with them. He gladly agreed to stay in their home. The first days, SpongeBob behaved perfectly well always. He helped with chores and played with children. But gradually, something began changing inside him slowly. His smile became too unnaturally wide and strange. SpongeBob never slept during the night hours anymore. He just stood there and stared at them. His laughter became increasingly more mechanical sounding each day. There was no real joy in it anymore. Peppa noticed that his eyes were glowing strangely. Red light in the complete darkness of night. Food in the house began disappearing mysteriously every morning. SpongeBob was always near the refrigerator watching. Family photographs changed their facial expressions slowly over time. All smiles became sinister and evil-looking. SpongeBob began whispering strange words at night hours. Nobody understood their dark and mysterious meaning. The house filled with creepy atmosphere of fear. Something was terribly wrong with everything around them. The family realized their terrible mistake too late. SpongeBob no longer hid his true nature. Peppa's house always seemed like the safest place in the world. But tonight something sinister lurks behind the glowing screen. Peppa sits comfortably watching her favorite SpongeBob cartoon. The familiar yellow character dances happily on screen. Suddenly, the television screen begins to flicker strangely. SpongeBob's cheerful smile slowly transforms into something terrifying. Red eyes replace the innocent blue ones. Sharp teeth emerge where a gentle smile used to be. The evil SpongeBob presses against the screen from inside. Glass begins to crack under his supernatural pressure. With a horrifying crash, the monster breaks through. Evil SpongeBob emerges into Peppa's living room. Peppa screams in terror as the nightmare becomes reality. The creature towers over her with glowing red eyes. Evil SpongeBob's laugh echoes through the house menacingly. His sharp teeth gleam in the dim light. Mama Pig rushes downstairs, hearing Peppa's frightened cries. She freezes, seeing the terrifying yellow monster. The evil creature turns his attention to Mama Pig. His red eyes burn with malicious intent and hunger. Papa Pig appears but immediately backs away in horror. The family huddles together against the supernatural threat. Evil SpongeBob begins to grow larger and more threatening. His presence fills the entire room with darkness. The monster reaches out with twisted yellow hands. He wants to drag the family into his television world. Peppa tries to run but finds herself trapped. Evil SpongeBob blocks every escape route with supernatural speed. The creature opens a portal back to the television. Dark energy swirls around the glowing screen menacingly. One by one, family members are pulled toward the portal. They cannot resist the evil SpongeBob's supernatural power. Peppa watches helplessly as her parents disappear into the screen. She realizes she will be next victim. Evil SpongeBob grabs Peppa with his cold yellow hands. She feels herself being dragged toward the television portal. The living room becomes empty and silent once more. Only the flickering television remains as evidence. Inside the screen, the family is trapped forever. They can only watch as evil SpongeBob seeks new victims. The television turns itself on every night automatically. Evil SpongeBob waits patiently for unsuspecting children. His red eyes scan through the screen constantly. The monster searches for his next innocent victims. The Pig family house always seemed like the safest place in the world. But today, something dark was stirring within its cheerful walls. George sits alone in his room, staring at Mr. Dinosaur. A strange whisper echoes in his mind. The voice speaks softly, calling George's name repeatedly. George looks around confused, seeing no one there. Peppa enters the room, noticing George's strange behavior. George appears distant and doesn't respond to her calls. The whisper grows stronger, telling George about a beautiful lake. George's eyes become glassy and unfocused. Mummy Pig calls everyone for lunch downstairs. George moves like he's in a trance. At the dinner table, George stares blankly ahead. The family exchanges worried glances about his silence. The voice in George's head becomes clearer now. It speaks of cool, peaceful waters waiting for him. George suddenly stands up and walks toward the door. Daddy Pig asks where he's going, but George doesn't answer. Outside, George walks past Grandpa Pig's garden. Grandpa notices the boy's strange, empty expression. The whisper guides George toward the old lake. His footsteps become mechanical and purposeful. Susie Sheep and Rebecca Rabbit see George walking alone. They call out, but he doesn't hear them. George reaches the edge of the dark lake. The water reflects his pale, emotionless face. The voice becomes urgent, commanding George to enter the water. George takes his first step forward. Peppa arrives at the lake, calling George's name desperately. But George seems completely under the voice's control. The whisper promises George eternal peace beneath the waves. George's eyes turn completely black. Mummy and Daddy Pig arrive, shouting for George to stop. But the voice drowns out their calls. George takes another step into the cold water. The lake seems to pull him deeper. The family reaches the water's edge, but George continues walking. The voice has complete control now. George disappears beneath the dark surface of the lake. Only ripples remain where he once stood. The family stares in horror at the empty water. The whispers fade, leaving only eerie silence. Days later, strange sounds echo from the lake at night. Some say they hear George's voice calling others to join him. The lake remains still and dark, but locals avoid it now. They know something evil lurks beneath its surface. The forest near Peppa's house always seemed friendly during the day. But as darkness fell, strange whispers began to echo between the ancient trees. Peppa and her friends loved playing in the meadow at the forest edge. They never ventured deeper where shadows grew thick and unfamiliar sounds lurked. Grandpa Pig often warned the children about the old legends. Tales of a green creature with glowing red eyes that haunted the darkest part of the woods. One evening, George noticed something unusual while looking out his bedroom window. A pair of red lights glowed from between the distant trees. The next morning, strange footprints appeared in the garden. They were much larger than Daddy Pig's and seemed to lead toward the forest. At breakfast, Peppa heard Mummy and Daddy Pig whispering about missing vegetables from the garden. Something had been taking them during the night. During playtime at school, Pedro Pony claimed he saw a massive green figure watching from the trees. Nobody believed his frightened words. That afternoon, while Peppa and George played in the yard, they heard rustling from the bushes. A low, rumbling laugh made them freeze in terror. Two glowing red eyes peered at them from the foliage. They disappeared when Mummy Pig called the children inside for dinner. That night, strange shadows moved across Peppa's bedroom wall. The shapes didn't match anything that should be outside her window. The next day, Susie Sheep found a strange, muddy handprint on her bicycle. It was enormous and had an odd greenish tint that wouldn't wash away. Daddy Pig decided to investigate the forest disturbances. He took his flashlight and promised to return before dark fell completely. Hours passed and Daddy Pig didn't come home. Mummy Pig tried calling his phone, but only static answered from the other end. Peppa overheard Mummy Pig talking to Police Officer Panda. The officer promised to search the forest at first light. That night, a terrible storm raged outside. Lightning revealed a hulking silhouette standing motionless in the garden, watching the house. Morning came with no sign of Daddy Pig. The police search party found only his broken flashlight at the edge of the darkest part of the forest. Grandpa Pig arrived looking grave and carrying an ancient book. He spoke of old protection spells that might keep the family safe. While Mummy Pig and Grandpa prepared the house, Peppa noticed George staring out the window. He pointed silently toward the forest edge. There stood a massive green ogre with twisted horns and glowing red eyes. Shrek smiled with too many teeth and held Daddy Pig's muddy hat. The creature left something on the doorstep before vanishing into the trees. It was a crude map drawn in mud, showing a path deep into the forest. That night, strange music drifted from the woods. It sounded like a flute playing an enchanting melody that made everyone feel strangely sleepy. Peppa woke at midnight to find George walking trance-like toward the open front door. His eyes were glassy and unfocused as he moved. Grandpa Pig caught George just before he stepped outside. The little pig woke confused, saying the music had called him to follow the forest path. The family huddled together as the music grew louder. Outside, countless red eyes watched from the darkness, waiting for someone to answer their hypnotic call.